Hello there, this is Swift92 and I'm here to give you my first impressions of ZENITH The Last City on PlayStation VR. This is not the PlayStation VR exclusive, so some of the issues that I list here might be PlayStation VR, well, only. It might not exist on the PC version. But let me just start by saying that I do enjoy the game very much, but I can recommend that you wait a bit before buying, especially if you are hesitant to buying it right now. There are a few issues that I will address in this video. Most of it are kind of minor that can be sorted out with a patch in the future. So I'm not too worried about most of the issues that I will talk about. But there are issues and I will mention them in this video anyway. But we will start with some positive things, of course. Now, the first good thing I want to tell you about are the visuals. I'm playing on an ordinary PlayStation 4 Slim, so the visuals aren't the best in the PlayStation area. The PlayStation 4 Pro and the PlayStation 5 I imagine get better visuals, but I still really enjoy the visuals in this game. They are not the best graphics I've seen on the PlayStation VR, but they are still really great, especially for being a MMO with so many different things that to take into account, like armor sets look different, the characters, the trees, enemies and all of that. It's not high on details, but it still looks amazing. I mean, if you go up to a tree, you can certainly see the jagged edges and all that, but looking out on the landscape from higher up or just looking towards the horizon, it just looks beautiful. The music is nice. It really makes the world feel alive. It fits the world really well. It fits the fantasy world of ZENITH really good. I love the music. The cartoony style is also good for the game, as it doesn't overwhelm or takes too much of a system's hardware, which is I think is one of the reasons they went that way. I like it, and also it helps with the loading screens. Thanks to the simple but nice graphics style, it doesn't take too long to load in. Fast travel and loading a new zone is very quickly done. It loads quickly. Move on. The combat effects are a bit lackluster, I would say, at least for the mage that I have played. I've only tried the mage so far, but the spells can be a little bit lackluster in effects. It's very 2D, very simple. The pistols, or energy blasters, whatever you want to call it, are quite nice. I mean, basic energy balls that you shoot at the enemy, and they look really nice, I mean, when you're looking at them. But it works. Everything works, it really. Could use a bit more explosion effect to some of these spells, like the fireball spells or firewall. I just learned a firewall spell and I thought, oh cool. I used it and it looks very two-dimensional and quite boring. Effective though, very effective. I love the effect. I love the damage it had. But I do enjoy playing the mage class. I do love using my hands to do different spells and such. You just have to remember which button is which and what movement does which thing. It's too bad you can't, I would say, customize that a little bit. Maybe instead of having some spells locked to that movement, that motion, hand motion, I could like switch it. For example, if I wanted the fireball that I have not to be on the button, I could maybe change it to having the swipe left or swipe right motion instead. But Sadly, you can't do that. But now we're gonna move on to the reasons why I think the game is basically in a late beta phase. This is where the fun begins. Now, as I said, I do enjoy the game very much, but it has its flaws and annoying things. I understand that the developer might had to release the game like right now to cover costs and such, so that's very understandable. So I understand that if they had to release the game now and not continue to develop it a little bit more. So let me put it this way, as I said in the beginning, if you are unsure about the game, wait a little while until you start playing it. You could buy it right now, that's no problem, but you can play it maybe later, but you can also just try it, and if you encounter too much problems, well, just leave it alone for a little bit and come back to it. But if you have other games to play, I would say stick with those for now. So, what are these problems I'm talking about? Well, this picture will tell you everything that happened when I started the game. This was my first impression of the game. And let me just say that it was not very good. Though I will say this quickly resolved itself as I restarted. I had to restart the entire game. I actually created a new character and tried to log on to that character, but I had some issues with logging on to that character, so I quitted the game and restarted the game entirely, and then I went on to the old character and he was fine. It worked again, so that was great. Though I did notice that there's no delete character button, though I could have missed that one. But as with this beginning problem I had, I also encountered another thing that is a bit weird for me and could be a problem. It's a minor issue though. But before making a character or selecting a existing character, you get to choose a server, or shard as they call it. They say a home shard, but this home will change as you can change it every 24 hours, and you will have to change it. As the shards gets, after each time you log into the game, the shards are going to be full or on high population. Now, high population means more players, but it doesn't seem to affect the servers, because once they're full, they're full. They can't get any more in, so they have a max capacity, which I presume is what the servers can handle. But every 24 hours you can change the home shard, and when you log out, and if you plan on playing later that same day, well, you better remember the name of that home shard, or you will end up searching because your current home is not marked. And as the characters are saved on the account, not the servers, those are not visible in the server list as with other MMO games. But I can say this, I did play the same time on 2 times on the same day, and once in the morning, once later in the afternoon or evening, and I could change the home server. I don't know why. I could change the home shard. I have no idea why, because I shouldn't have been able to do that, because it was less than 24 hours since I last chose a home shard. So I'm not sure how that mechanic is working, if it's working as intended to work. Anyway, it's a minor issue, and usually I scroll down and try to find some name of a server that I can easily remember, which goes quite well actually. Oh, and the servers are all of the servers are based in the US, and I'm in EU, but I haven't experienced much server lag, as far as I know at least. Nothing major, like a small delay in the enemy falling down and dying, but nothing major, which is very impressive, and I'm very happy about that. It's very well done. Now, on to some other things that I think are negative, or
Greetings, Agent.
not negative in such a broad term, but not fully realized. Let's put it that way. When picking up crafting ingredients from the ground or trees, it can be hard to actually target ingredient even if you're close by. I'm not sure why. This could be just me, or it could be a PSVR only issue. I have noticed some drift in the controllers, and what I don't like about VR is that I don't know if it's the game or if it's my controllers. This is really annoying. But I have noticed some drift in my hand, or only in my right hand, I think. Maybe in my left, but mostly in my right hand. And I don't know if this is my controller or the game. But I did hear some conversation from two other players who talked about kind of drifting, but I can't say for sure. But another similar issue to that kind of control issue is that as a mage, I use my hands, as I said, for spells. Different hand motions for different spells. And sometimes they don't seem to register, especially when doing a from down to up. Like pulling my hand up, holding down the trigger, pulling my right hand up. There's so many times I actually picked up loot instead, or I picked up something in my quick inventory slot where you have your healing items or other things that you can place there. Or I pick up my guns that I have on the side, because you can't cast spells while holding the guns in your hands. You need to place them at your sides, and then you can cast spells. Well, you can have one gun hand and one spell hand, let's put it that way. But there are so many times I've actually picked up my guns instead when trying to do some spell animations or motions. This is really annoying, but of course it's part of the VR experience, maybe. And now, I do love the way I'm casting spells with the motions, but this is really annoying, but it could be just me. I'm sure this is more of a... what should we call it? A getting familiar with the controls situation. Now, there is one last problem I want to mention, and that is loading screens and loading new zones. Now, if you're playing ZENITH, you might wonder what I'm talking about, as the loadings of new zones are quite fast, as I mentioned earlier. And I agree with it. But when I did a dungeon where a group quest and story quest were situated, the game did not load the entire dungeon area. Now, in other MMOs, yes, I'm comparing it to other MMOs that are not VR, but in other MMOs, when you enter a dungeon or whatever they are called in that MMO, the entire dungeon is loaded, and all other areas outside the dungeon are not loaded. This game loads in a very different way. As you enter a new zone, the zone behind you is still loaded, and normally you can go backwards without having to load a new zone. The game loads a certain amount of zones, or rather a certain amount of area, I would say square foot or square meters, before it deloads that area and then loads the other one when it's needed. That's at least how I understand it from playing the game. But as I said, it did not load the entire dungeon area. And when it comes to loading new zones, I get confused in this game, as you can in many instances walk right where you came from without loading, as I said. But it seems the game loads a certain amount, and then if you progress in that dungeon, you can get a loading screen whenever. I mean, there's nothing that marks that there will be a loading screen. Out in the world, you can normally see like purple walls in many places where it indicates here there will be a loading screen. But not in this dungeon. Now this could easily be fixed, of course. But wow, it got me into a lot of trouble in that dungeon actually, which was really annoying. Now, because the biggest problem with it was that I engaged some enemies in battle, I moved forward, and I got a loading screen as I was in battle. Your character can be damaged in loading screens. This was something I very much noticed. That was really bad, but of course it can be fixed. Now, I don't know why the enemies are loaded in... If the zone is not loaded, why are the enemies there loaded? I don't know. At least that's how it worked. The loading zone seems to be placed very, very weirdly in this dungeon. Now this is the first dungeon I ever encountered, so I don't know what the deal is with other dungeons further into the game. But that's how the first dungeon went for me. Another thing that happened with this loading was that I got stuck with a loading screen as the game didn't seem to load the things it needed correctly. It said it loaded 9 out of 18 and then I just popped back into the game. And then my screen went to black and the loading continued again. Then I came back into the game, loading screen, came back, loading screen, came back, loading screen. It sorted itself out eventually. Eventually it correctly loaded everything and I could play, so that was just great. Yet another thing that can hopefully be fixed is hopefully fixed in a future update. Although this could have been just me who experienced this thing. I don't know. But now, after all this, what are my first impressions and thoughts on the game? Really? Well, I like it actually. I mean, the feeling of flying in the game and the combat and the visuals are very nice. Even the simple voice acting does its job very well. I can recommend waiting a while, as I said, before buying it, unless you really want it. The gameplay is nice, lore in the game is sparse, but that's not the focus. The story in the game is not the big focus, at least not for many players, I imagine. I love the gliding mechanic, as I said. Good music, voices for NPCs do their job well enough. Very limited character creator, but I can live with it. Now, all the problems I've listed, as I said, can be patched. So I will still play the game, without a doubt. I love the game. Well, love might be a strong word, but I really like the game. I really like the game. I will continue playing it as much as I want to. But I've been Swift92, have a great life, and hope to see you in future videos. Bye bye! Hmm.